Dear Kadir Has University core program students, I am Tuba Sevinç.
And I am Dan Goldenberg. Today we are going to talk about what is plagiarism. We will talk about the meaning of the word plagiarism. We will go over different examples of plagiarism. And at the end, we will see how to avoid plagiarism.
Everyone knows that it is forbidden to copy in an exam, but what exactly is wrong with that? Imagine you tell your friend about your last summer holiday, the places you have met, the new people you have met, also the interesting things that happened to you. Later, you will notice that your friend published a book, you were very excited and bought the book. But while you are reading, you realize that the story is your story. Your friend just described you and your memoirs. You feel strange, perhaps you feel angry, but what exactly is wrong with that?
Your friend did not mention that it was you who gave him the idea for his book, just like the student who copied in the exam. In both cases, this is plagiarism. But what exactly is plagiarism?
Plagiarism is taking someone else's work or ideas and present it as your own without giving any credit to the owner. This includes stuff taken from web pages, books, songs, TV shows, even email messages, artwork, and other mediums.
Sometimes even famous writers and artists are accused of plagiarizing. For example, J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter series, Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, and even singers like George Harrison from the Beatles.
In academic studies, it is forbidden to plagiarize. There are many ways of plagiarism in addition to copying someone else's work. Let's see what these are.
For example, first, submitting someone else's work.
Second is direct plagiarism.
Third, direct patchwork plagiarism.
Fourth, making few changes with the intention of hiding plagiarism.
Fifth, paraphrasing without citing.
And the last one is self-plagiarism, submitting an old work of yours.
Now let's follow each one of these examples in some more details.
When students submit a paper, they bought or paid someone to write for them. Imagine that you need to write an essay for your course, but you were too busy with other things. On the last day, you are very stressed because you haven't written your article. At the last moment, you submit an essay written by your friend, perhaps even for which you agreed to pay him.
This is plagiarism and it is fully forbidden. Another example is taking large pieces of text from different sources and putting them together as if they are your own work. For example, think that you are using 2 book chapters and 2 articles for your essay. In the first paragraph that you write, you take some passages from 1 book chapter. In the next paragraph, you use long explanation which you have found in 1 article. The third paragraph is using an example from another book chapter, and the last paragraph has a good example which you copied from a second article. If you are using all these parts without citing your sources, this is plagiarism. How can you avoid it?
You need to paraphrase your sources and cite them properly. Copying from a source and changing a few words and phrases to hide plagiarism. On the left side, we see the original work. On the right side, we see how the student uses the original work. As you see, the student only changes some words with their synonymous.
This is plagiarism.
So what we should do to avoid plagiarism, we need to use quote or paraphrase and cite these things properly. So let's see the correct version. So in the correct version, the student gives credit to the author, Jared Diamond. Also, the student gave the date of the book as 1999 in parentheses. The quote is put in quotation marks, and at the end of the quotation marks, we see that the page number of the text.
Paraphrasing from different sources without citing them. For example, you paraphrase or write in your own words, or sometimes summarize when you write your own words but shorten the text. And this way you use parts from many different books and articles, but you don't cite them. This is plagiarism. And how can we avoid that? If we paraphrase or summarize, we must cite our sources.
Submitting an old work which you have submitted to a different course. Imagine again that you need to write an essay and also you don't have time to do that for some reason. On the last moment, you realize that the essay you wrote for a different course in the previous year would also be useful in that one. So you submit your essay, which you earlier submitted to your previous course.
This is plagiarism. How to avoid that? If you want to submit an old work, you need to get permission from both instructors, the current course instructor and also the instructor for which you submitted the work previously. Only when you have approval from both instructors, you can submit this work. Even when you cite your sources, still you can plagiarize if you do the following things.
If you do insufficient citation or partial quotation.
If you give an inaccurate citation.
If you forget to use quotation marks.
Or maybe you forget to give an original contribution of your own ideas.
Or you assume common knowledge.
Or sometimes you can even use other sources like graphs, maps, or pictures. Also, not citing them would be plagiarism. An unintended plagiarism is when you do the following.
Mention an author or source in your paper, including a full citation, without including a full citation in your bibliography. So what you should do, you should give reference to the author in the text, and you should also give full reference to the author, to the book, date of the publisher, date of the book, and also the publisher company in your references section.
Also, citing a source inaccurately and making it impossible to find the original text.
Using a direct quote from a source and even citing it, but not putting quotation marks at the beginning and at the end of the quoted text. Please remember, if you do not use quotation marks, your instructor will assume that it is your own sentences. Only when you use quotation marks, we can know that you are borrowing these ideas from a different author.
Even when you don't intend to do that, still these are plagiarism. What can you do to avoid that? In all these cases, don't forget to cite your sources accurately.
Paraphrasing and citing several sources without making an original contribution is also a kind of plagiarism. In academic writing, it is important to include information from outside sources. It is especially part of your research, but it is not enough. We expect you to add your own ideas, analysis, and interpretations of these ideas. Otherwise, you would be putting different things together without contributing in your own way.
This is also plagiarism. In order to avoid that, when you are writing your work, try to see that you are writing not to an expert, but you are writing to a friend who is not familiar with the subject. Also, when you paraphrase and analyze your sources, don't forget to cite them.
Not citing your sources because you think that it is something common knowledge. You read an idea in a source, but you write, everyone knows that. Many times this is not so. Only experts might know this. You need to assume that people do not know these things and they need to know where you are quoting these.
When you do that, this is also plagiarism. In order to avoid that, when you write your essay, think that your reader is a friend and not an expert. Try to search where you can read about these ideas and cite them. And if you have any doubt, ask your instructor.
Using graphs, figures, or images from other sources without citing them. Imagine that you add your essay a map, a picture, or a graph, which you have found in internet. Even these materials need to be cited because they are prepared or they are organized by others.
In order to avoid such a plagiarism, like any other book or article that you use, any graphical information such as graphs, maps, or pictures must be cited. When you use them, cite where you took them from.
Remember, when using anyone else's words or ideas, you must give credit to the author and inform your reader that you borrowed these ideas from someone else. It is not enough to just list the sources in the bibliography. You need to give in-text citations. Also, citing others' work does not mean that your work is not original or diminish the value of your work. Quite the opposite. It shows that you did good research and acted honestly.
So, is it forbidden to use other sources in my work? No. You can and you should use other sources such as books and articles, as long as you remember to avoid plagiarism and give credit to the ideas which you found in other places.
How to avoid plagiarism? Now look at some clues which might help you to avoid plagiarism. The first thing is that you need to learn the principles of academic writing. Many of the unintentional plagiarism cases are the results of poor writing skills. If you are not writing well, which means that you need to borrow phrases from other people.
Also, good writing skills will enable you to write and express your own ideas using your own words. Also, learn how to quote and paraphrase sources using your own words. When paraphrasing, you need to read the passage that you want to use many times and make sure that you fully understand them.
Write your own version of the passage without looking at the text. Try many times if needed.
After that, compare your own version with the original text.
Make sure that you have paraphrased objectively without changing the original meaning or adding other things.
At the end, make sure that you acknowledge the source and use a citation accurately.
Don't forget, even you paraphrase, you need to cite the source of that idea.
There are many citation styles that we use in different disciplines, such as APA, Chicago, or MLA. Here, we shall focus on the APA citation style, but in other courses, your instructors may prefer a different format, and you should follow that.
Also follow the core program Academic Honesty and Integrity Guideline on the Learn system for more details on how to cite from various sources, including Wikipedia, ebooks, journals, magazines, even YouTube videos and other sources.
When using the APA style, we write the author's name and the year of publication in parentheses. For example, one study found that the most important elements in comprehending non-native speech is familiarity with the topic. Here we have in parentheses the name of the authors, Gus and Varonis, and after a comma, the year of publication, 1984. Sometimes the name of the authors will be part of the sentence. In this case, only the year of publication will be written in parentheses. Here
we have an example of direct quote. If the length of the quote is lesser than 40 words, you can do in-text quotations. So it says that one study found that, in quote, the listener's familiarity with the topic of greatly facilitates the interpretation of the entire message, end of quote. And then we put the name of the writers, the date of the publication, and the exact page of the text in parentheses. Also notice that the period comes after the parentheses. Also, you can cite this in a narrative form, directly referring to the authors in your sentence. Kesten Veronis, in parentheses, the date of publication, found that goes with the quotation, and in the end with the page number.
When we use a quotation which is longer than 40 words, we will write the quotation in a separate paragraph. Many times it will be a little bit indented. And also, we will not use quotation marks. We will only include the author name, the year of publication, and the page number in parentheses. For example, we see here an indented paragraph which has the quotation, and at the end, the citation using the author name, Sen, the year of publication, 1992, and the exact page, number 55, in parentheses.
Notice that in block quotations, we don't use quotation marks.
Also, in any work that we submit, we must have at the end a reference list. In the reference list, we will mention all the sources that we used in that work. We will write the articles that we use and the books that we use for this work.
In the first example, we see how to cite an article from a journal. You see that the author names comes first, then the date of the publication in parentheses, then the name of the title of the article, and then the name of the journal. Notice that the name of the journal needs to be in italics.
After the name of the journal, we will write the exact number of the volume, and sometimes there are more than one issue for each volume, and we need to write that in parentheses. And after a comma, we will write the page numbers of the whole article.
In the second example, we will see how to cite a book in APA style. So it first comes the author name, then the date of the publication in parentheses, and the book title, this time in italics, and then the publisher house.
We will write both the name of the publisher and the place of publication. Notice that in the book title, only the first letter and the one that follows column starts with capital case letters. The rest will be in lowercase letters.
Make sure that you learn about the details of your citation style, because there are many things that you should pay attention. For instance, italics, underlines, capital letters, lowercase letters, parentheses, where to put period, and so on. So make sure that you do your research and study the details of your citation style.
In addition, in order to prevent plagiarism, don't think that what you know is everyone's common knowledge. It may not be. What is common knowledge? Common knowledge is information that your average readers should know. But how can you tell if something is common knowledge? Try and ask yourself if you knew this information in the past. If you didn't, the information is not common knowledge. Even so, it can be a very tricky question, because what is common knowledge for you may not be common knowledge for someone else. When you have any doubt, best thing is to reference and cite your sources.
Although it occurs in such cases, even if you think that your idea is original, try to look up it on the internet or in other sources to see if there is someone else before you mentioned that idea. Let's imagine that you came with an idea by yourself. You did not read about it elsewhere. It is better to make sure and Google it. If you find the idea is already mentioned by someone else, you should cite it, even though you found it on your own.
When you have any further questions about plagiarism, ask your instructor. And don't forget, in any doubt, it's always better to cite your sources.
Yes, always cite your sources.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.